can tell me.
Good evening. It's 6 p.m. on July 26th. I'm B.T. Chapman, Chair, and I call to order this meeting of the Chico Airport Commission. Madam Airport Manager, will you call the roll?
Commissioner Antelock? Here. Commissioner Crockett? Here. Commissioner Nolan Gosling?
Here.
Vice Chair Kozik?
Here.
And Chair Chapman?
Here. Thank you. A couple of housekeeping matters before we begin the agenda. First of all, the agenda for this meeting is available at the back of the room. Also at the back of the room are speaker cards. If anybody wishes to address the Commission on any item on the agenda, please fill out a speaker card, bring it up to the front desk here, and you'll be recognized at the appropriate place on the agenda. I would like to restate the mission and vision of the Chico Airport Commission. It reads to recommend policy direction and guidance to the City Council to ensure the vitality, growth, and operation of the airport for the benefit of the community, and to meet regional needs and carry out the Commission responsibilities in accord with the Charter. I would also like to remind my fellow Commissioners the need to identify any ex parte communications you may have had on any item on the agenda. Those communications are those that are made outside between a Commission member and any person of the public concerning a proceeding to be heard by the Commission. We have one introduction.
Thank you, Chair Chapman. Eric Gustafson, Public Works Director over the maintenance divisions for the City of Chico. I now oversee airport operations. I just wanted to take a quick moment to formally welcome Sherry Miller here to the community and to the airport and ultimately to the City of Chico. We're very excited to have her. She comes with over 30 years experience, as you know, in the aviation industry, and we're very confident and very excited to have her here, and we feel she's going to be a great asset to the airport, the City of Chico, and the community at large. So I just wanted to formally welcome her again, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you for doing that. Again, welcome, Sherry, and I'm certain we'll hear from you later on in the agenda. Following the agenda now, item 2 is the consent agenda, and there are 3 items under that consent agenda. The first one is a minute order, authorization for the city manager to execute a lease property at the Chico Municipal Airport, aircraft hangar area, hangar pad area C, hangar space number C11, City of Chico, and Michael D. Favor. The second minute order is authorization for the city manager to execute a lease property at the Chico Municipal Airport aircraft hangar area, hangar pad B, hangar space number B8, City of Chico, Northgate Aviation. The third item under the consent agenda is approval of Airport Commission meeting minutes, our regular meeting of April 26th and a special meeting that we had on June 17th. As a matter of clarity, I have a couple of questions on the minutes. Should we pull the minutes from the, okay. I would like to pull the minutes from the consent agenda because I have some questions. Do commissioners have any questions on either the minutes or the 2-minute orders?
No, I go ahead, and since you moved the minutes, that we approve both minute orders. My motion that we approve both minute orders.
Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that the consent agenda comprised of 2-minute orders be approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. Looking at the minutes of our April meeting, on page 4 of 4, item E, update on airport-owned properties, transfer flow requested to purchase some airport property, and council authorized the city manager to explore discussions with transfer flow and engaged FAA regarding the potential release of property from federal obligations. Transfer flow agreed to wait until after the new airport manager is appointed to move forward. Is there any update on that item at this point?
City staff did meet with transfer flow, and it was determined at this time to hold off on any development on that parcel until the airport can be further evaluated for aviation uses on the aeronautical use side of the airport.
Okay, thank you. The other item that followed that was number F. The Land Use Commission had a kickoff meeting for its update. Staff will continue to update the commission on the process as it moves forward, and I think maybe we'll also later on have a report from our representative that goes to those meetings. But from a staff standpoint, is there any update on that particular item?
No, there's no update. I did put a call into Mead and Hunt, but the call has not been returned yet.
Thank you very much. The last item that I question is under item 6.4, number C. Again, the Land Use Commission, our Commissioner Antelock goes to those meetings, and the Land Use Commission has hired some outside consultants to assist in the airport land use compatibility plan review. And there was a comment from the public advising that the city needs to participate in this process and make the vision for the airport's future clear. Is there any update on that particular item?
I have applied for, to be on the board of the ALUC, Butte County ALUC, and they have my application, and they do have 2 empty spots for airport managers, so I'm thinking that I might take one of those spots if they choose to bring me on board, and I will be attending the ALUC meetings on behalf of the city.
Perfect, thank you. Other commissioners with items on the minutes? Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes of our last quarterly meeting of April 26th be approved. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Passes 100%. Thank you. Continuing the regular agenda. Item 4.1, discussion commercial air service. At the Commission's April 26, 2016 meeting, the Airport Commission held a public works study session related to the return of commercial air service to the municipal airport. It was a consensus of the Commission to again agendize this topic for discussion at this particular meeting. And for the Commissioners Antelope and Crockett, who were appointed to attend the JET Chico meetings to report back to the Commission. I believe that in addition to a report that the two commissioners might provide this evening, a member of the JET Chico group, specifically Norm Rosine, I think, is ready to make a presentation. So the floor is yours.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for letting me talk. As you know, we've been meeting since December, the JET Chico group. It's a community group. Now we have the airport manager on board, and we have 2 of your commissioners on board, and we're grateful for that. Our purpose initially was to look at what we needed to do to reestablish commercial air service in Chico. And with that, we started surveying the local and regional airports that have commercial air service, specifically Redding, Santa Rosa, San Luis Obispo, and evaluate, what did we need to do infrastructure-wise to be able to handle service. And we quickly discovered that our terminal is insufficient, and we began to look at what terminal improvements or modifications are indicated so that we could handle more passengers and larger aircraft. That's where the future is. That's where we need to head. So with that in mind, we were fortunate enough to have Steve Gonzalez come on board, and we began to hammer out a floor plan for a modification of the air terminal. We didn't really know where it would go. We kind of started putting the pieces together. We had a couple meetings where we discussed it. And to your right, there's a floor plan, the larger of the plans that are up there. And that is basically a floor plan that would handle regional jets, 50 to 70 passenger regional jets. With Mike Antelope's help, we kind of figured out where we needed to go size-wise. If we had potentially 2 sets of passengers there at a time, and then a third jet was diverted, that became kind of our size. That's how we size the departure lounge. So I would like everybody to take a look at it. It's expensive. It's not going to be cheap, but I think if we look at it from 2 angles. One is, if we don't have commercial air service, we're losing $750,000 a year in AIP funds. So over 10 years, that's $7.5 million, and my guess is that's going to be pretty close to the cost of the building. Secondly, every survey I've ever seen of businesses that are looking to relocate lists commercial air travel 1 or 2 on their list. So for the future, if we want jobs in Chico, it's imperative that we have commercial air service. As I've stated before, we are the only CSU campus besides Turlock not to have commercial air service within 30 minutes of our campus. We have input from Chico State. We have input from several of the larger entrepreneurial type companies in Chico on our committee, and they are driving this. They really want to see this happen. So that's kind of my basic report. I really wanted to bring the floor plan into you. Hopefully at the next meeting we'll have some elevations of what the building might look at, and we're going to have some financing mechanisms. We're looking at some kind of public-private partnership to do this. It seems like the interest is out there in the larger companies that we should be able to garner some funds. We don't expect the city to pay for this by themselves. We hope they participate. And I just don't see a way around this. If we just try to pretty up the existing terminal and get SkyWest back, I don't think we'll be successful in selling the community. And I think it's going to take community support to drive this, both to use the airlines when they come and also to help in the actual construction and financing of it. I'm willing to answer questions if you guys have any.
Questions?
Yeah, I have a question. So you went to San Luis Obispo?
Well, we looked at San Luis Obispo, or at least I did, just from a fundamental standpoint because of, they've got some new air service going in there.
Oh, do you know who they have going in?
Greg, who just went in there?
Alaska's going to start nonstop service to Seattle in April, and Delta already flies, or American flies to Phoenix, and they have SkyWest flies to both San Francisco and Los Angeles, so they've got good service.
Okay, so they're kind of, again, and Redding's added some flights too. So I think every city is individual and every airport is individual, but if you start looking at, campus, CSU, there's a CSU campus, Cal Poly, and Reading is certainly close by, and what they've done with their terminal enlargement, they're probably the newest terminal to be enlarged. Santa Rosa's scheduled to have an enlargement of their terminal. You look at what needs to be done. It takes a lot of space to handle, I think that's what I learned from what Steve's come up with. It takes a lot of space to handle TSA and the departure lounge with the associated bathrooms and stuff. If you just look at those items, they're probably almost half the structure that has to be added. So we're going to utilize the existing terminal building. It's not going to be torn down, but it's going to be remodeled pretty significantly.
My guess is not only remodeled, but expanded.
Yeah, so if you look at the plan, not only expanded, do you have that on computer, Dave? Basically, we're taking the terminal building, which is, can you see that, to the left? I'll point to you.
Yeah, there we go.
So here's your existing terminals right here. Here's your added terminal building.
Oh, my.
It's 3 times as large, about. I think it's a cool project. I mean, you can look at it 2 ways. Either this is really difficult to do, or this is a great challenge to have. And I look at it as it's time to do this. Either you go for it and you do it, or you are going to be Turlock, okay? So rather than wring our hands about the cost, let's figure out a way to pay for it and do it. And let's get the community behind it. That's just, I think, what has to happen. And I do want to reserve some time to go through the Air Museum's new entrance later in the program, so I'm staging that too. Questions? I see a lot of, oh my gods.
I agree. I mean, you don't know what you're getting into, and you've got a number of examples out there to look at, and it's time to jump in and make a plan. It doesn't matter what the plan is, just make the plan and then adjust it later. So I think it's a great step forward, in my opinion.
And I guess I should have from the outset say we're not going to build this until we have a commitment from airlines. Okay, so this is not a build it and hope. This is a let's develop a plan. Let's have some really nice, pretty finished plan, and show them to the airlines and say this is our commitment. This is what we can come up with. Let's talk. Okay, if we don't have something, if we just tell them we're going to do something, that's not good enough. To show them something that's tangible, to show how the financing is going to happen, now we can have a discussion with them. And I think that's the purpose of the group that I've been working with.
Norm, you might speak to the partial reason of such a large expansion to the folks out in the audience about the TSA requirements, not only in being able to process the people and the backup that could conceivably happen if there were delays, weather, whatever, but also the requirements, the new more stringent security requirements regarding the luggage,
Yeah.
and how that is affecting what we have. There is a perception sometimes I hear of, why don't we just start it back up?
Yeah.
With what we have, and yet there have been developments as we've all looked
and
at.
that's a great point, Kelly. So, and Sherry has educated us too that the requirements for TSA are constantly evolving as technology improves. And when we make the step to build this, we're required to have the most current technology. We can't buy some used secondhand stuff that isn't going to fly. And it takes a lot of space. And now baggage has to have a screening area so it can be screened. Passengers are screened. And you've got to handle the numbers that go through an airport when you have larger flights. and basically it eats up space. From an architect's or a design standpoint, you have to design that space for the given use, but then the number of people also dictate all the accessory functions, restrooms, corridors, rest areas. And then all of the TSA staff, you have to have offices for them. You have to have, we're trying to incorporate some of the other things that, like food courts or some kind of at least vending machine area. So it does add up space-wise. There's no denying that, but we were getting, the terminal what we have now is 45 years old. It was designed, look at the airplanes we had flying back then. Things have changed. It's time for us to move forward. And this terminal, while I don't consider it extravagant space-wise, it can move us into one airline and then handle a second airline. And I think that's kind of where we think we're going to be. And if we actually got past that, then the next group of people can move on that. But this is to get us where we should have been all along. I mean, I think realistically, if we would have looked at this 15 years ago and said, what do we need to do, we would have 2 airlines here already and we wouldn't have lost SkyWest, but we kind of never kept up with it. And that's what I think we need to spend some money to catch up. But I think the community support among the business community that I've been dealing with on the committee, I think we'll see. And we'll see in the next few months if they're willing to come up with the funds or at least support the concept of this.
I have a question. What's been the comment of some of the airport tenants? Have they been involved in this process?
They haven't.
They haven't?
Yeah, we just, this design is so hot off the press that it was printed today because we basically have had 2 meetings related to the floor plan, and then we took a week and a half worth of comments, and then Steve was nice enough to incorporate those comments and give me something to give to you today. So I think this is the first public outing of this. We're open to everybody's comments now because we want to kind of finalize the footprint so we can look at, okay, let's do some elevations of what the building will look like, and then we can develop a budget. It all leads one to another, and you start with the footprint and the floor plan, look at what you need to do, and then you can develop the building.
Norm, a couple items. First of all, the work that your group has done deserves a huge, huge amount of thank you. To volunteer to do that and to produce what I'm seeing in front of me, which is very professional. Bravo to you.
Well, and I need to thank these guys from Nichols, Melbourne.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it.
It's been totally gratis, it's totally volunteer, and they've spent a lot of time and effort on this.
You mentioned that now that this has been made public, if you will, it's open for comment. And how would people that are interested in commenting do that?
Good question. They can contact me. I'd be glad to give out my contact information. That's probably the best way for me to synthesize it and give it to these guys.
Okay. And is that floor plan, if you will, online somewhere, or?
It's not right now. We can put it on the Jet Chico website. I think that would be doable. I'll have to talk to these guys. We haven't talked about putting it out there.
Okay.
If there's any legalities or...
So right now, if the public wanted to comment, they would have to be provided a hard copy, and then if you get it online and somebody wanted to look at it, you would direct them where to go online.
Yeah. I think we can make that happen, but I need to talk to the architects.
Okay. It seems like somewhere along the line, the effort here should be brought to the attention of City Council. Maybe right now it's too early, and especially if I heard you correctly, your next step is to talk about financing.
Yep.
And so it would seem that when that part of the puzzle's together and we have comments from the public on the design, that kind of puts somewhat of a package together that would be appropriate to go to council, just for their first look, if you will.
Right, and I would agree 100%. I think floor plan-wise, the public might have some comments, mostly that it's probably large. That would be a comment or an observation. But I think it's essential. So I don't think they're going to nitpick that. When we actually design a building and there's some aesthetics to it, then I think that the public will want to weigh in.
Yeah.
But I agree with you that when you have that part of the design process and a potential financing mechanism, then you have a package that, you know, I think the council's aware of what's going on, and that's perfect. But when we have something to actually give them and show them and talk about, I think that's when it would be appropriate to really sit down and have some hard talking.
Yeah. And does that seem appropriate to staff that's here tonight as a way forward?
Yeah, I think that would be appropriate. We need to obviously take a look at it, and this is the first time we've seen. I know Sherry attended the last Jet Chico meeting and will be involved and bring her expertise to the table. But once we get a look at it and as it gains traction, we could go from there and make a recommendation.
And your folks in your department would probably be ones to look at it?
Yeah, especially if it's just informing council, we would look at it absolutely, and then we would be the ones that would take it to council to just as an FYI.
Yeah. Okay, so it sounds like a lot of coordination between you and Mr. Rosine and Sherry and so forth.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're really to a point where it's kind of a developing concept. And when the concept is there, it doesn't mean it can't be changed. The building certainly can be changed at any time in the design phase. But I would like to see the elevations of what the building look like, because that's going to be part of the aesthetics that we're looking for, and part of that is really going to play into the marketing of the whole package. So we're getting there, and certainly the city council is going to be a big part of that at that stage.
Okay. While Mr. Rosine's up there, do either of you two
I do.
chime in?
I have a statement I'd actually like to read. I would like to extend my appreciation to the Jet Chico Group for welcoming me to their June 9th meeting. I appreciated reviewing the first design draft of an updated terminal with jet service capacity and the subsequent follow-up drafts through email. Thank you. By exploring the details of what it would take to upgrade our airport, they have begun a process that will yield invaluable information that ultimately will inform the public. I would like to see this process extend out to eventually capture a clear picture of the potential costs, which we're looking at next, involved with the physical upgrade of the airport and subsequent maintenance for jet service, as well as the fiscal revenues expected from such an upgrade. This information needs to be disseminated out to the public, along with a realistic analysis of how much travel from Chico would warrant a carrier's commitment. The public also should clearly be advised what it would take to upgrade our airport to be in compliance with TSA requirements and function as a small plane regional airport again. Because we don't have a choice of just opening the doors right now, and that's important the public realize that, I think. I expressed my concern during the meeting that the public at large must also be part of the decision process regarding both projected use and what options are available to traverse the fiscal encumbrance of any proposed direction, so they have choice. I'm concerned about having one choice being, one proposal out there without the public being able to see what other choices they have. I think this information gathering stage, which I see where we're at right now, is very prudent. And I commend the Jet Chico Group for furthering the discussion and for being here today. Norm, thank you so much. The work is amazing and wonderful. And I appreciate being part of learning more about it and seeing what options we have.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate those kind words. You know, the whole purpose of this was to explore where we could go. There hasn't been a dime spent of public money or anyone's money. And there may never be a dime spent if we determine, as you're pointing out, if it just doesn't pencil out, if it doesn't look like it's going to work, then it's not going to work. You guys know that I'm a big optimist, but I also am not so stupid to not look at what's going on in the industry, and there's a lot of changes going on, and historically, I'm also a student of history. Chico's always had commercial air service, almost, but it's had its phases, and we're in a down phase right now where we don't have service, but I really think we're going to come back. So that's why I think it's worth exploring and worth coming up with a concept, and certainly anyone is welcome to come up with alternatives. But if you've been to these meetings for the last 4 years, there's not a whole lot of people out there that pay that much attention or have the desire to pursue it in a fashion like our committee has. Now we're really loaded because we have airport commissioners, we have an airport manager. I feel like we're really on track to get something done.
Thanks, Kelly. Mike?
Well, I was able to go to both those meetings and find out what you were doing. I had no idea. And the first part of it is that the participation you have is awesome. I think that the group you have of people that are interested in coming together to discuss the issues is awesome. And that's essential. You have to have that, or we won't have it. There's a number of things I want to say about what I'm doing in relation to airline service. I've been doing a lot of traveling, and I've been to a lot of airports in the last 2 weeks. In one of them, North Bend, I went up there to see their airport last Wednesday. It's a sister city of Coos Bay. They're a very small city. It's not that big, probably half the size of Chico, maybe a little bigger. And I was lucky to went in the afternoon with the manager there, Teresa Cook, and they fought like heck to get airline service in that city, and they got it. She was very helpful to me. She told me what they did and what they're doing. It's not only did they work to get it, but they have to work to keep it as well. And she explained to me the deposits they put on for the airlines and how they commingle that with the company there at the golf course that put up money for it too. And they have a flight to Denver, and then they have a flight to San Francisco. And they have an RJ 700 going to Denver, and then a 50 passenger going to San Francisco. And then they have 3 flights a day, or no, sorry, 4 flights a week to Portland on Pen Air for Alaska. And she did a lot of explaining to me, and I really appreciated that, and I got some really good insight from that. One of the things she pressed on me was a consulting company out of Eugene called Siskel. S-I-X-E-L. It's a consulting company. And they're pretty much the major consulting company in the country, and they're airport airline community planners. So they do a whole range of stuff. And one of the things they do is they work with communities to get them ready to go to the airline. And you can use all their services, or you can just use none of their services. They're putting on a conference in October in Kentucky. And I've signed up for it. I plan to go. And I would hope that our new airport manager could go to that conference as well. But we have to go to that conference. All the other communities in this country who are competing for airline service are going to be there. And it's very important that we go, because we're going to be introduced to the airline planners. And those planners are going to see, they're going to get a chance to see Chico. They already know about Chico, but they're going to see a face with Chico. And they're going to be able to see what Chico has. And then they're going to look at you and critique it and say, okay, this is where you're short, this is where you need, this is what you do. And then they'll point out the positive things as well. And it's really a big feedback. It's a networking opportunity. And I speak the language because I worked for the airline for so long, but our manager worked for the airlines as well. She's got more experience than I do. She speaks the language as well. So it would be a really great opportunity for Chico to send her and I'm not asking to be reimbursed, I'm paying for myself, I'm going on my own, because that's just what I want to do. I can't pass this opportunity, but it's a good opportunity for us in Chico, and so that's where I'm at. I've stopped at a number of airports across the country, and I've taken photos of their terminals and talked to their people, and just to get an idea of the pulse that's going on out there. And my plan is to interview a bunch of these executives before I get to the meeting. I want to introduce myself to these people so that when I get there, I feel comfortable and I can be myself and talk to them and get some information. So that's, for the airport commission, that's what I've been doing.
Thank you. The conference that you're referring to, I think that's the one that happens every year, and it's the one that Avports
Yeah,
talked about last year when they were our consultant. That's the same conference, is it not?
I'm guessing that it is.
Yeah.
There's probably a few conferences. I think this is Cisco, or it's not Cisco, it's Cisco. These people that out of Eugene, Oregon, they got their pulse on. Some of their people, I've spoken to a few people that know them. Some of their people go to work for the airlines, and some of the people that are consulting for them have worked for the airlines. They pick up phone calls and they pick up the phone and make calls to people in the airlines. And so they keep their hand on the industry. They know what's going on. And they can pick up the numbers for Chico in a minute and find out what we're doing that we weren't doing last year and what our positives are and where we're going with it. And so they're the people to be with and to get us. Now the city at some point may decide that they want to get some consulting help, but that's up to the city at that point. I'm just getting information that I can get to share with you guys.
Thank you, Commissioner Adlock. Other
I have one other
comments?
thing. Norm, I really appreciate you coming. You have vision. And I've been on the commission now for 6 years. And actually, until we lost air service, it's amazing how many people didn't even know we had an airport. And then all of a sudden, the 5 of us up here were all being blamed for losing air service. So I appreciate your vision. I think the whole thing I've been saying for 6 years, and I don't know, it's the old, back to the what comes first, the chicken or the egg. We got general aviation, we have commercial air service. Kelly, you're right, our infrastructure, we really have to look at our infrastructure and jobs. And with a vision, maybe we can get all 4 of those. But it is a process, and you've made a lot of headway. I mean, in the last 2 years, we had Chico State here with a lot of data, but probably with not a lot of commitment. Data's fine, but I'm sorry to say there's not a lot of commitment. But if you're getting some of the business leaders, I think this is wonderful, and come back with more. And Steve, I really got to thank you and your crew. We go back a long ways in my previous life at another job, so thank you for doing this. So good job.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd like to just reiterate, this is a tremendous progress in the process. And I'm loving that, but I'm seeing exactly what you just said, is getting that support, getting those commitments, getting that under our belt, giving the public the information and the choices so they see, and absolutely our next step is to take a look at the fiscal. Right. I want to make sure the public is hearing that we are certainly doing our due diligence as we go and not getting too carried away with just let's jump into this and hope somebody will pick us up.
Yeah, no, that was never the idea. And the Jet Chico group has been mentioned in the paper, thankfully, several times. And we've had some public people who want to be on our email list. So, you know, I don't know how to get it out there. Everyone is invited to come. Realistically, when you start talking about terminal design and airline service, a whole lot of people just don't have a fascination with that, or they understand it's important, they just don't know how to participate. Everyone is invited. We've never excluded anybody. Again, I just go back to, you have a great asset. The airport's been there for a long time. It's a tremendous asset. It's underutilized right now. A terminal will help facilitate that, and the funds that we're losing in AIP funds, they add up very quickly to the amount you're going to spend on the terminal. I mean, that's just the way it is. And if you don't have commercial air service, you're losing that money. It's just going right over the top of Chico and flying to another airport that has commercial air service. And that's going to hurt the whole infrastructure, because that's the money we use for taxiway improvements, lighting improvements, ramp improvements. That's the money we've been using. We cannot lose that. Okay. Yeah, Tom.
I have a couple of things. In previous meetings, we had discussed updating the AvPorts data and actually having someone maintain the catchment data on passengers departing Sacramento and San Francisco. And then you had mentioned 50 passengers, which is sort of along the lines of the Canada Regional Jet, which I know this is what Reading is using right now.
Some of them, yeah.
And I'm pretty sure there's some sort of security level change at 60 or 70, or I'm not sure, but you reach a point and you have to have a different security level at the whole facility. I only hope we have that problem someday.
Yeah.
I was sort of curious as well, if you had like a plan B for, if an airline stumbles in and say they want to start something up really quick, can we put up some temporary structures to accommodate that? This is sort of what was discussed with AvPorts as well. And
we haven't looked at a plan B, but I mean, given the infrastructure that we've kind of studied, we could whip up a plan B pretty fast, I think. It would, but a lot of it would be Sherry trying to talk TSA into coming back and setting all that up. Because plan B to build a temporary structure to house departures is one thing, but you're right, getting approved, upping our security rating back to where it was when we had commercial air service, that would take some time.
so, I talk to people and they say, well, San Francisco really wasn't a good model anyway, just sort of sour grapes. But at the same time, they don't really want to take no for an answer. I mean, it's Chico after all. And, so maybe something like maybe San Jose would work out.
Yeah.
San Jose didn't used to have two really big runways, parallel runways, but now they do. And I used to fly down there, and they always seem to have a hole right over the airport, and you can always get in.
Yeah. We haven't looked, and Greg's our expert on what airlines are moving in what direction, but I think, especially after talking to Mike and listening to basically SkyWest's story, that we will end up having SkyWest come back. But I don't think that's going to be sufficient to sell the public on going back to San Francisco. I think that could be an adjunct, but I think we need another carrier that will go to a destination that we know is not going to have the same problems. So we're kind of designing the departure terminal for two airlines. That's why you'll see two points of exit from the building, with the idea that, yeah, we can probably get SkyWest come back if we improved our infrastructure, but that's not going to sell to the public. It's just not going to happen. So we need another carrier. So, who could say what might happen in the future if we did stumble upon someone who wanted to come in? We would certainly get in gear, but at that point, it would not be our committee. It would really be the city to take over, because then there would be a hard and fast offer. Our goal is just to create the concept, both financially and building-wise, so that we would be ready to then hand it to the city and give it to the city council and say, look, we did all this work. It makes a whole lot of sense. We're going to have a very attractive building. I guarantee you that. Change whatever you want, but we've done 90% of the work, and let's go do this. Let's get it done. I've said that at meetings 2 years ago. Let's get going, okay? To me, this is painfully slow. I want to see this done, and we're moving ahead as fast as we can, but if we don't start somewhere, it's just not going to happen.
The other question I had was, you mentioned public-private venture. Have you given any thought as to how that might actually work out if you found someone who found a company or a person with the means to do something like that, what might that structure look like?
You know, I could guess, but I'm not going to. John Streesauer, who's part of our group, he is the person who has some great ideas about how to put that together and much, much more experience. I will say that we have the CEO of one of the major banks in Chico as part of our group. I'm not going to mention them. I don't know if they want us to. So we have some banking expertise from a conventional kind of structured brick and mortar bank, but we also have someone who's an entrepreneur who has raised funds for projects that were far more vague than this one and done very well. So ask me that question at your next meeting and we'll have some hard and fast answers, but it's not by bailiwick. I love working with the design team and I like the airplane part, but I don't know anything about financing. That's not my strength, and that's why I'm going to rely on other people.
Tom, just a quick response to you. I asked the same question from North Bend, and how they do it there, they have a company, there's a big golfing company up there, some of the finest golf courses in the country up there in Coos Bend.
Yeah,
You know that.
Bandon.
And, yeah, and what they did is the city put up $500,000, the agreement with SkyWest, is the city put up $500,000, and the golf company guaranteed another $500,000. The city's $500,000 went into an escrow account, but the golf company didn't pay anything. They just committed that they would, and they decided that they would pay whatever seat was empty up to 80%. So if a passenger plane had 50 seats, 80% would be 40. If they sold 39 seats, at the end of the quarter, they sent the golfing company a bill, and they paid it, and the city paid the other half out of their trust fund. And that's how, and it only took $500,000 plus a guarantee of another $500,000 for anything below 80% capacity. So, but all of these agreements are different from city to city. So I would imagine that there's variations of that same thing.
Yep. It's just $500,000 here, $500,000 there. Pretty soon you're talking real money. It is expensive. I mean, there's no doubt about it. You look at a construction project like this, and there's sticker shock. But we need to move on past that and say, you know, we're going to put our big boy pants on, and we're going to go do this project as a community, and that's my goal and plan.
Oh, you know, I'd just like to say one other thing to anyone who's listening who doesn't know that Facebook and Google are at our airport. So I don't know. I mean, the possibilities are. I mean, we get more of that up here, and that's a huge opportunity.
Yeah. And I can't agree more, Tom. There's a lot of companies that are looking to get out of the rat race right now. If you looked at housing prices in the Bay Area, and yet you look at those companies that are growing, there's just no way sustainably that they're going to keep housing their employees and keep them happy. They're going to have to branch out. So they're going to look for satellite places just like Facebook has here. And I think if we had the airport infrastructure, especially with our airport manager, you know, marketing the airport to those people and the city backing her, that we have a lot of opportunity. But they want commercial air service. They want to move their people around. They do not want them to waste even just the time wasted driving to Sacramento, not the inconvenience, but they want them working, and they want them fresh when they come back. They don't want them worn out coming in at 2 in the morning. There's a lot of reasons to do this. Jobs are a huge reason. And the other I'll keep alluding to is that 750,000 we're losing every single year that we don't have commercial air service. It's free money, essentially. It's not free money. It's your money. It's your taxpayer money that's not going back to you. That's wrong.
Are there other comments? Do we have any speaker cards? One.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Yes.
Norm.
Yes, we do.
I-
I was being polite.
Okay, what does that say? I'm sorry.
I'll just introduce myself.
This is Robert.
Robert Halford, 3095 Ray Creek Drive, Chico. Just recently relocated back to Chico from Indiana. I served on the Economic Redevelopment Committee there and also the Planning Commission for the town. Actually, I think this is more a question towards you. In California, and I don't know it as well as I do in Indiana, are we able to issue a TIF for improvement in the at the airport? Because I just quickly was just kind of searching it, tax increment
I'm
fund.
sorry.
Oh,
I was trying to decipher another name.
oh, sorry. Can the city issue a TIF for airport improvement? Because in California. So it's a tax increment fund, and I just kind of Googled it quickly in California. I'm not really sure.
Sounds like no, but Chris, do you want to comment on that, or?
No, that
City
went
manager?
away with RDA. RDA funding was tax increment financing. There is infrastructure financing,
Yeah.
but it would have to be based on revenue that's generated from that area. And my understanding is in that area, it's not sufficient to support that financing.
Okay, because I was just reading the new law that Governor Brown just passed that actually included transit. So if you make your TIF large enough, you could pull it in. You don't have to limit it to just the airport.
No, yeah, you would pretty much have to do the whole northeast area of the city, which would include all the residential areas too.
Yeah, so I mean, this is something that Commission I'd like to, maybe as you're starting to look at this building, a private-public partnership is optimistic at best when you're trying to build a $7.5 million facility, just because it's a lot of money to scrape together. And as the gentleman who spoke, this kind of needs to get done now. I work in the IT sector. I travel a lot, and I just moved back, and I do not like that drive to Sacramento. But I also did not enjoy spending a lot of nights in San Francisco because I got stuck. So it's kind of the either-or situation, and I'm very passionate about this, and I just learned about the Jet Chico group, so I'll make sure to be involved in that. But as you guys get out into the community, the main purpose is economic development. It's not convenience, it's economic development. As Tom just pointed out with Google and Facebook, there are a lot of us hanging out in Chico. There are a lot of people that work for Accenture, Deloitte. They're on the road every week traveling, and it is time and productivity that they cut out. And so part of the deal for me to move back to Chico was being able to have ease to an airport. And if I'm stuck or I'm driving or that's lost productivity, and I have to start looking at, is it worth staying in Chico? And there's a lot of people in that situation. They're like, is the cost of living worth the lost wages that you could get living closer to an airport? Because they're not hired. They don't want to hire you because you live in Chico, because it's so far out from San Francisco. And I take the train now to San Francisco because that's the only way to sufficiently dodge traffic, and it's at 4 in the morning. So, and that's not even really reliable. So as we go forward, you'll see a lot more of me, because I want to make sure that we bring back a good service, reliable to the community. So thank you for your time and effort.
Carl Ori.
Try to keep the name simple for you. This has been a great presentation. I think I could just add a couple little pieces that I thought were maybe lost in the allure of the possibility of this facility. Some of the origins of looking at facilities is some correspondence we've had, very limited correspondence, very important, I think, with United. Some 4 years ago, 5 years ago, the commission solicited the business community, and a letter went to United asking about direct service to Los Angeles, signed by Ken Grossman and the president of the university. And that created a phone call, unfortunately, back from United, not a letter, but there's in your data is that the notes from that phone call. And they talked about 100-passenger planes landing and being filled on a regular basis 3 or 4 times a day, and what that would require. They did not talk about lack of market and lack of passengers. They talked about facilities. And then, as you know, some of you know, after we lost air service, we arranged another phone call with a United representative in San Francisco, sort of what happened, what could we have done different? And the notes from that meeting, too, would tell you that they, again, did not really focus, I think, on how many passengers we could generate, but a concern about facilities. I think that if we had this in the plans, it would have given pause to United's decision to leave, would have given us more time. So we're playing catch-up. And so I wanted to suggest that there are 3 or 4 legs to getting commercial air service, and having a conceptual plan for a facility, an improved facility, maybe is the important step. I built subdivisions. I think of concept, feasibility, finance, development, and occupancy. And we're in concept phase. And I hope no one really gets hung up on whether this is a $1 million facelift or a $10 million new facility or any of that. This is us starting to think about what it would take to bring commercial air service back. It's getting us to the point where we make a pitch. And I share Norm's frustration with the time. I would hope that we would be ready to make a pitch to an airline or several airlines sooner than later. But in that discussion, we have a schematic, we have a concept, we have discussions of financing. The other piece that was missing was market data. And the Avport market study, I think, gets us along that way. It would be the 3rd market study in, the modern history of the airport, and brought together. I think it starts telling a picture that, in my terms, we can capture, say, 20% of people on any given day that are flying would fly out of Chico. And that, I think, fills those larger planes and brings us back to commercial air service. But the idea that we would also continue to update that and bring it to the point where that's also our pitch to a commercial air service provider is key too. And so I just wanted to give that background, or that this isn't just one piece. It's the whole thing. I kind of have to chuckle when it's like, well, how do people give input to this? Well, this should be in the city's capital improvement plan. I mean, we started with a study that was done by a city consultant some 5 years ago, and it's in your drawings. As a new commissioner, I was handed a copy of it. And so it needs to come back around and become a city plan, and you guys do the feasibility analysis on it. I love the idea that this might be partly financed by non-city money. But the sewer plant isn't, the airport, the park isn't. At the end of the day, if it brings us jobs, puts Chico on a map, I think there's 2 kinds of cities in the world, those with airline service and those without. I think the public will support it, but we're in the concept phase. One last little comment, though, I think I want to try to keep on the radar, is that when we had these discussions after United left, we had these great study teams. But participating in the Air Service Committee were 2 representatives from Paradise. And I think and not more than once. They came on down, and it was the city manager and the mayor, and they were involved. And I want us to remember that regional air service it would be stronger if we involve all of our partners in those plans. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Do we have other speaker cards?
No, we do not.
Hearing no further speaker cards, I will close public comment. And I will make one additional comment and then try and pull together on a very broad scale what I think we have heard tonight that kind of gets at the way forward from here. The first thing I'd like to do is remind commissioners of an email that you received from Debbie right after our last meeting, and it provided some research reports that were sent to her by Matthew Stone, a professor at the university. Those references seem to have some very interesting information in them. If you haven't already read that material, I would encourage it highly. It has some very valuable information in there. So basically what I heard from Norm is we have an architectural rendering of what a new airport facility terminal will look like. That item is available for public review and public comment. I do believe that we should agendize this discussion again at our next meeting for two purposes that I heard. The first purpose is we may see some elevation drawings, and we also may see some dollars and cents attached to what we're looking at conceptually. Those two elements are very critical. What else did we hear that I missed from a broad scale? Okay.
I got something else down below, and this is actually, it's my recommendation to Eric as the Sherry's direct supervisor. I don't know much about the Sixel Airports Conference in Lexington in October. Lexington's probably pretty nice in October in Kentucky. My recommendation personally, I'm not speaking for anyone else, is that the city of Chico really investigate this conference. And if this is not the one, investigate another conference that you can send Sherry to, because I think it's something which has been lacking for quite a few years. So that's my personal recommendation.
I could speak to that too. Sherry's been with us 2 weeks, and I think on the third day, she advised me her desire to go to that conference in Kentucky, and we approved it, and we have the funds in our training budget to send her, so she will be going.
Fantastic, very good.
Loving every minute of this.
Okay.
And the next meeting will be probably the week following that conference, so we should probably have some information from that.
Sherry can give a report. Fantastic. Okay.
Given there's no further discussion on item 4.1, commercial air service, I'll continue the agenda. Item 5.0, business from the floor. Members of the public may address the commission at this time on any matter not already listed on the agenda, with comments being limited to 3 minutes. The commission cannot take any action at this meeting on requests made under this section of the agenda. Is there any business from the floor?
Hi, Norm
Mike.
Levine. I also would like to take the opportunity to show you the first elevations of the Chico Air Museum's new entrance. They're posted up on the board there, but again, thank you to Nichols, Melberg, and Rosetto, because Dave Rogers, the architect, has designed the entrance gratis, and he has a little video of what it might look like when we get it done. And this is not public money. This is all money that the museum is generating through its fundraising to improve an airport asset. Pretty cool. Thank you very much, Dave. That's Dave. Yeah. So again, we haven't gone through plan check with that. Obviously, we have some work to do, but conceptually, that's what we're looking at. And as you flew over that triangular piece of ground that is to the east of the museum, that's going to be the memorial walk area. It's going to be a outside the fence picnic area, so people at the airport that want to go have lunch next to the museum, they'll be able to do so. We're excited about that. And we're excited about the new entrance. And I will also report that we've contracted with a contractor to do the roof repair on the museum. That should happen just about any time, and the city has approved that. So there's lots of good things happening at the museum. In the last month, we've received 3 new airplanes. It's just, it's been a fun project. So hope to see y'all out there, and we're going to start work on the entrance as soon as we finish our fundraising. Thank you.
Bravo to you. And in my personal opinion, it's that type of activity and that kind of initiative that keeps the airport alive and vibrant while we work to get air service back here. Advertise fly-ins from people all over the country to see the best air museum north of Sacramento. I mean, it's just a very positive element that can really be advertised and made to work, not only for the airport, but also for the economics of the city, because whoever visits the museum is going to go have lunch, they're going to maybe stay overnight. It all works. Bravo. Other comments?
The BT-13 trainer flies over my house on a regular basis, and I can't help but think about the 5,000 pilots who learned how to fly during World War II, you know, every time I see that thing. Anyway, I really appreciate that history.
Other comments? Moving on, reports and communication. The following reports and communication items are provided for the Commission's information. No action can be taken on the items unless the Commission agrees to include it in a subsequent agenda. The first item is 6.1, the Budget Monitoring Report. The quarterly airport budget monitoring report has been provided to the Commission. Are there any questions? And Chris or anybody going to give a report? Yes, sir.
This is a minor report. We were moving towards closing the books for 15-16, and in May it appeared that the salaries budget and their operating budget for the airport was going to trend over slightly, and basically that was due to the field supervisor under airport operations that's out there. Typically he spends about, it's on our budget amount, is about 85% of his time out at the airport and about 15% of his time in the facilities division. We were trending that most of his time was spent out at the airport, so it was supplemental to move about $10,000 from our facilities budget over to the airport operations budget to cover that time.
And that also plays into the direction that I remember last year, where the financial position of the airport account is in a loss position, but that loss will not grow. It's frozen at whatever level it was 1 or 2 years ago, and then there are transfers in to keep it at that level. I'm explaining it very elementary, but
You are correct. The city has a budget policy to not allow a deficit fund to continue to grow. So to the extent that our expenditures are greater than the revenue, that transfer will occur from other city resources, generally the general fund. In addition to that, in order to address the existing deficit that has accumulated already up till the point we passed that policy, we're putting $100,000 in addition to that fund balance from the general fund to ratchet down the debt and get it back to zero.
thank you, Chris. And now, the first ever Airport Manager, verbal update from Sherry.
Thank you, Chairman Chapman. I was asked for a couple of items to be on my verbal report. The first being the organizational chart, which you have in front of you, and it's available to the public in the back of the room. The organizational chart shows that I report to Eric Gustafson, and he reports to the city manager, and they report to the city council. Reporting to me is Jim Kohler, who Eric mentioned is going to be out at the airport more frequently than he has in the past. Next on my report is a listing of my priorities. Coming into the airport as the first airport manager in quite a while, you can see that the city has taken a great deal of effort to hire someone and to move the airport forward in development and including air service. So my first priority is air service. And in getting air service back, it is going to be considered new air service. It's been gone for long enough that everyone, the FAA, TSA, will consider it new service. I plan on going to the Air Service Development Conference put on by CIXL, as Eric mentioned earlier. I've been attending the Jet Chico meetings. I've attended one to learn what Jet Chico is doing and can do to help in that effort in getting air service back. One of the first things that I'm going to do is put out an RFP to get a aviation demand forecast. An aviation demand forecast will tell us whether air service is going to be viable, and that's the first step. If in the aviation demand forecast we see that air service is going to be viable, then we'll conduct an economic benefit study. The economic benefit study will tell the community how valuable air service is to the community, and it will help get their buy-in, the business community and the community at large, including the Chico State. It will help get their buy-in for air service. And then what the airlines want to see when we go to these air service development conferences, and you can't just go to one, you have to go to numerous conferences and continually meet with the airlines. They're going to want to see a marketing plan. So we will also develop a marketing plan. And as Mike mentioned, there are actually a number of air service development type companies out there. I know of 6 just here on the West Coast. You were probably mentioning Jumpstart earlier. Jumpstart is one of the air service development conferences put on by AAAE in partnership with ACI-NA, Airports Council International North America. So they host Jumpstart, and that's done. Most of these conferences are yearly conferences, and depending on which conference you attend and when do you attend it, some of the airlines attend all of the conferences, some of them just attend occasional conferences, and they call these conferences speed dating for airports. And what it is you, through the firm that is hosting the conference, they make an appointment for you with the airlines that you would like to meet with. Sometimes an airline isn't available, or their time slot isn't available, and you meet with the airlines for about 20 minutes, and you sell your airport to the airline, and you tell them why they will be successful, why they're going to have 80% occupancy on their aircraft. And over time, which I imagine will take at least 2 years, you learn what they want, and they learn about the airport and what the airport can do for them. One of the other things in getting air service back to Chico is the TSA would like 24 months to get to ramp up their operation. They have to hire, they have to attain equipment, which they don't have built yet. Now, if we were to get air service, an offer for air service in 6 months, we may be able to do something temporarily. But there are so many agencies involved in this that it is something that does take time. And taking time, we will be attending the air service conferences and learning about what we can do specifically, because as Mike mentioned, or I think it was Norm, the airline industry changes weekly, and TSA does as well. So we need to keep up with them. The airlines have gone to larger aircraft and gotten rid of a lot of their smaller propeller aircraft, and now they're starting to get their smaller jets back in service. So it's a process, and that's one of my first priorities. One of my other priorities is getting the budget. It was mentioned earlier that the deficit that the airport runs at and the amount of general fund monies that the airport takes. One of my tasks is to reduce that, and hopefully, when we get air service, reduce that down to zero. The airport should be self-sufficient, and we have enough property at the airport, I think, and the economy's in an upswing, and there's a desire for light industrial and aviation use. We should be able to get that deficit down quite a ways. One of my other priorities is compliance. Compliance with FAA, Caltrans, environmental compliance, city rules and regulations, tenant and lessee rules and regulations and compliance, FBO, and users. We have some areas that we could improve in. You may have heard we had a fuel spill on Friday, and that kind of thing can be avoided in having users adhere to our rules and regulations. And specifically to that issue, one of our rules and regulations is that anyone who comes on the airport, tenants can self-fuel. Their FAA rules and regulations state that they must be able to self-fuel. But we can impose rules and regulations on them. But they can only be as strict as what we impose on the folks that are at the airport already. So those that self-fuel have to comply with the same insurance requirements that the FBO complies with, the same safety rules, the same training, and they have to carry the same equipment on their vehicles as the FBO is required to carry. So in that regard, I believe the fuel spill that we had on Friday was training related from that company that has had the helicopter out at the airport. It was a firefighting helicopter. So that's one of my most important tasks, is to make sure that everyone on the airport is complying with the rules and regulations that we have, because that's what keeps us safe. One of the other priorities I have is airport improvements. And one of the first things I'm going to do is get the airport tenants and users together to improve the way the airport looks. Right now it looks a little bit run down, and I think it will go a long way to remove some of the buildings that need to be removed. We've got a few that have lead and asbestos, and they're falling apart. Remove those, take care of the landscaping on the airport, take care of the buildings. Some of the buildings have peeling paint, and that will also attract other tenants to the airport, because they will see that we value that asset, and we do. We just need to make it look like we do. Part of the airport improvements includes the Airport Capital Improvement Plan. That's, I'm sure, do you know what, has that been brought before you? It's a plan that outlines what we're going to be doing for the next 15, 20 years, and generally they're airside improvements paid for by grant funds from the FAA. Now, as Norm said, we're going to be losing our entitlement funds that we get for having 10,000 or more passengers per year, 10,000 or more enplanements. We're going to be losing that next year. It's $1 million each year. We will get that back when we get air service back, but there will be a 2-year lag in that. So our entitlement funds are going to be reduced to $150,000 per year. We can still get the projects done that we want to get done, but it's likely to slow down a bit because of the amount of funding that the discretionary funds that the FAA is going to need to contribute. $150,000 isn't going to, I don't think $150,000 is going to do any one of our projects. We need, at least 500,000 at a time, or for the ramp projects, those take a couple of million at least. So that's one of the reasons for getting air service back here is to, get our entitlement funds back up to $1 million. Some other things that I'm going to look into as priorities are to review the rates and charges that we charge. I don't think a rate study has been done in quite some time. We are probably not charging fair market value, which we're required to do. The FAA requires us to charge fair market value for aeronautical uses and non-aeronautical uses. And the fees that we charge for non-aeronautical use are generally higher than aeronautical use fees. So I'll be doing a study to find out what other airports, like-kind airports, are doing, and perhaps adjust our rates and charges accordingly. I'm going to look into the minimum standards that we have. Minimum standards are designed to, they're standards that we impose on businesses on the airport to ensure that the businesses we have are of the quality that we want. I'm also going to be looking into the Butte County Regional Plan with regards to the environmental aspect on the airport and what the airport has. We have meadow foam and vernal pools, and it may hinder some development. It may hinder a runway extension if someday we wanted to go in that direction. So I need to learn what exactly we have there and what we need to do to mitigate that. I have current projects, or we have current projects in the works right now. The General Aviation Ramp Phase 3, currently we're waiting for the FAA to send us the grant paperwork. We're in the works on a pavement maintenance management plan, airport layout plan update, and design to taxiway alpha. We're going to reconstruct taxiway alpha, and that's one of the projects that's going to take a few $1 million to reconstruct. So those are all in the works right now. And that's my report.
Thank you very much. Are there questions?
I got a couple. No, go ahead, Kelly.
I want to go back to speed dating. I find it absolutely fascinating, and I'm seeing this as well, the flexibility of the smaller prop planes compared to moving into the capacity building of the jet. As you go out there to all of this, all the conferences, how have you decided? How are you marketing us? Are you marketing us for come out here now with your small prop? Or are you saying we're in the midst of moving forward into jet service and come on down, baby, we're wonderful out here?
Well, I'm going to say that for sure, but I'm not going to market the airport per se yet. We don't have enough information to market ourselves. And as far as prop aircraft go, that's not up to us. That will be up to the carrier. And typically those aircraft carry less passengers. So if they see that they're going to be more successful with a prop aircraft, then they'll bring that in. If they see that they will fill a small jet, then they'll bring a small jet in.
I have 3 or 4 things. Well, you hit the ground running. Get some work-life balance. We want you to stick around. So you've hit the ground running. That's the first thing. The second thing is, Eric, hopefully we have in our budget, I don't want money to be an issue here in terms of having Sherry go to conferences. I don't want to always be behind the 8 ball. So we have money out there that you can go to conferences?
Yeah, we do. We have some training budget available for stuff like that in the airport operations budget. And we won't be able to go to everything and all, but we'll choose selectively and appropriately and make sure we're getting our voice out there and promoting Chico, and Sherry will be attending as many as possible.
Okay. And then the last one is, this is more of a going back to the very beginning of the meeting when Chairman Chapman pulled the minutes from the consent agenda. Technically, the minutes were okay as written. They probably shouldn't have been pulled, but the question was, in the minutes was an update. It would help me a lot if the minutes, if something from this meeting, we say we're going to update, that should be at the airport manager's update. We shouldn't have to pull the minutes from the consent agenda to give us the update. Technically, I think we could approve the minutes, and then whatever is need to be updated should be at the airport manager's report. That technically would be correct. Because if none of us read the minutes, and that could happen, or we briefly go through it, we could miss the update, and I'm going to have to rely, that's my suggestion, that we do those updates at the time of the airport manager's update.
I agree. We can do that.
Yeah, that would help me a lot, because I read the minutes, but I didn't catch what BT did, so that would help me a lot. Okay.
Just to advise you or let you know, I will not be doing the minutes I will not be writing as much of the minutes as Debbie has done in the past. City Council has directed staff to document minutes, or in the minutes document what was done, not necessarily what was said.
Okay.
So, and because I have such a long list of tasks on my plate, it will help me a lot just to do a briefer accounting of the meeting. And if someone wants to get further into it, we do have a CD that can be borrowed.
Okay.
And they can listen to as much of the meeting as they'd like.
And I think in this meeting we didn't have any updates, so you're on the free and clear.
I have 2 questions. The first question, this zero balance for the airport, you said we're running a little deficit now, or somewhat of a deficit, and your goal is to get it at 0, so that it's, what, self-containing, self-sufficient? And I'm really, this is more of a question than, I don't really know how these budgets work as well. So does that mean that the revenue coming in from the operations of the airports, the rents, the landing fees, all that stuff, equals the amount of money we're spending on maintenance and lawns and stuff like that?
That's the way it's supposed to work.
That's the way it's supposed to.
Yes.
There's an economic benefit to having an airline here. We talked about that. You know, SkyWest used to, when they left, the day they left, they rented 2,000 hotel rooms a year, SkyWest did, just to house their crew. And so there's tax revenue from that. Obviously, there's an economic benefit to the community, brings in tax revenue. But that has nothing to do with what you're talking about. You're talking about just simple budgets at the airport, right?
Correct. Currently, the airport takes over $700,000 from the general fund each year, and my task is to reduce that. And that includes the revenues that we get for landing fees, fuel flow fees, rents, and then, like you said, the expenses are our highest expenses are personnel costs. That's typical in almost any business. And the other costs I'm looking into today. I had my first meeting with the finance director today. So I'm at the start of looking into what I can do to reduce that deficit.
Does, just curious, on the airlines, when we take a passenger in, we sell tickets, or they sell tickets, that part of that's taxed and goes to the city. Would that tax from an airline ticket also go into that budget, or is that going to be set somewhere else?
You're probably talking about the passenger facility charge?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, it's not considered a tax, it's considered a fee.
Okay.
And those funds have to be spent on specific projects. And so you forecast how much PFC monies you're going to have, and then you submit an application to the FAA outlining that project, and it has to go through an approval process.
Okay. Well, the other question I had is, now that we have an airport manager and a real participation from the community, and we see we're developing a plan to move forward, and there's probably going to be a lot more business taken on behalf of the airport. Do you see maybe an increase in, we meet once a quarter, and I kind of think that might be difficult in the future if we get busier. Do you see maybe something that might include more meetings? Or is that just too early to talk about something like that right now?
Yeah, I think it's a little too early to
okay.
tell, but quarterly for me right now, quarterly works well.
Okay.
I do have a lot on my plate.
I'm just curious.
And Debbie has said she's not going to help me anymore. After this, she's refusing to, she's not even going to answer the phone.
Oh, I'm just being a little optimistic. I think we're going to grow from here, and we're going to get busy, and I'm hoping that that's the case. And I'm hoping that there's a need for more meetings, because that's an indication that we will justify them. So, thank you.
Correct me if I'm mistaken on this, but the meeting schedule is driven by some provision in the charter, or?
That's correct. Yeah.
So it's not, I mean, nothing's impossible, but you would have to go through that effort. Yeah. Tom, go.
So you had mentioned, I believe you called it a aviation demand survey?
Forecast.
Forecast. So we have a lot of data that came back from Avports, and in particular the catchment areas for, I guess it would be Reading, and now Sacramento, and also San Francisco would probably be the most significant. Is there any way to update that easily on a, so we have like a financial report, and maybe we could do that report too? Is it reasonable to ask that, or?
Of the consultant that conducts the aviation demand forecast?
Well, I'm just wondering if the data is available, if we could pull it, if there's a way we could pull it and track it, sort of a rolling
I'm
report.
sure that the consultant who does our aviation demand forecast will be using that data. I don't know if there's any way to keep that updated
Is it,
every month? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if,
not every month, maybe every quarter. I guess my question to you is that meaningful to you to do that, or?
not at this time. I can see updating it, every year or every few years if we see that we're losing passengers and find out why we're losing passengers and then change our marketing plan accordingly. That might, it might be beneficial if that were to take place.
Okay, and then I just sort of had something to add to, well, he left. He was a gentleman here talking about air travel and how it was, yeah. He was sort of mentioning how it was painful to travel out of Sacramento, and so I hear the little nuances from my wife all the time, how the jet lag, waking up at 2 o'clock to drive to the airport to leave at 6 o'clock is worse than the actual jet lag that you get going to the East Coast. So that's sort of a subtlety that's missed, all right, for whatever it's worth.
I completely agree. You may not, I don't even go to sleep if I have to get up at 2. It's pointless.
Sherry, I know you're jumping in the middle of this, and I know how busy you are, and I know brevity is going to be your mantra, especially feedback to us on stuff that you're working through. But we only meet every quarter, and I will throw out there, I've been to thousands of conferences for various positions, and some are better than others. But what usually comes out is a sense of where the industry is moving. And what I would like to ask from you is, please share with us what you're getting out of these conferences that you're going to. I don't care if you go to 100 of them, I mean, you might have to get some really good information, but we are information gathering right now, and what the airlines are looking for as you speed date, you're getting the same question over and over again. What are they looking for? I know Mike has looked at that and spoken to people. That kind of feedback to us is invaluable. What do they want? What are they looking for? What are they asking you? Are they focusing on, well, how many committed businesses do we have that will guarantee X, or is it purely financial, or is it moving more into small planes, large planes, or what? I know I would really appreciate, you're our ear to the ground in terms of the industry. And if you could just bear that in mind, jot a few things down as you go, and maybe give us a little bit of that feedback down the road, I'd really appreciate that.
I can send you a summary via email after I come back from that conference, and there is going to be a meeting shortly after that. But I can send you, any information that I have.
It can be super brief with bullets.
I like bullets.
Yes, I'm there with you.
Other comments? I have 3. The first one is, I'm totally impressed with your priorities, the way you laid it out. I support it personally 100%. Second of all, what I heard about the way minutes will be created, I'm very familiar with that, and it basically, minutes will include, if I understand what you said, decisions made and direction agreed upon. Yeah, that's very common. The other comment I would make is related to the organization chart. With the new airport manager in place, it seemed important not only for the commission to understand, but also the public to understand or re-understand the relationship between boards and commissions and council and city staff. And that's what this organization chart shows very clearly, the reporting structure and the fact that not only boards and commissions like the Airport Commission and Architectural Review and Arts Commission and so forth, but also the council committees, Finance Committee and Internal Affairs, are dotted line to the primary staff organization. It seemed critical that with a new airport manager in place that we make sure we understand those relationships, and that's what this organization chart does. Thank you very much for doing that.
You're welcome.
Moving on to the agenda, item 6.3, letter of agreement. The Oakland Air Route Traffic Control Center of Chico, significant airport NOTAM coordination in accordance with the Chico Municipal Code Section 11R.08.050. The Airport Commission is being advised that a letter of agreement has been executed with the Oakland Air Route Traffic Control Center establishing responsibilities and procedures for coordinating significant airport NOTAMs in accordance with and supplemental to FAA Orders JO 7210.3. First of all, you can explain what a NOTAM is. I should know it, but I've forgotten. And then any other comments on that item?
A NOTAM is a notice to airmen, and that is a notice that goes out to all of the airmen that speak to air traffic control flight service station and or pull it up online. It's part of their pre-flight duties to check the NOTAMs. And this particular NOTAM has to do with notifying Oakland Center of a runway closure or something that happens at the last minute. It was generated because Vail Airport had an instance where they closed the runway to conduct snow removal, and there was an aircraft on final approach that had been cleared by air traffic control. And the aircraft, by the time, it's a mountainous area, so when the aircraft got down into the airport environment, they had no contact with the center that they had been previously in touch with. And meanwhile, the airport closed the runway and got out there with snow removal equipment with an airplane on final approach. So now it is, the FAA disseminated this agreement for all airports. It doesn't just include the ones in mountainous regions that have snow. Before I left South Lake Tahoe, I signed an agreement with Oakland Center, the same agreement. So when the runway is closed, you call Oakland Center in case there's an airplane on approach.
Thank you. Any questions on that item? Going forward, item 6.4, committee reports. Commissioners will report on airport-related items that have been addressed by their assigned committee, commission, or association since the last Airport Commission meeting. The first committee report is the Finance Committee. That's the committee that I attend every month. I have no special announcements from those meetings that have occurred since our last commission meeting. Internal Affairs Committee is attended by Thomas Nolan Gosling. Do you have a report?
No report.
Thank you. The Butte County Airport Land Use Commission is attended by Mike Antelock. Do you have a report?
No, they had one out of the 3 meetings. It's kind of a hit and miss for me, but they've canceled 2 of the 3, so they do it as an as-needed basis. But I don't have anything to report. I checked the minutes online.
Thank you. And finally, the North Valley Aviation Association, Mr. Tom?
Nothing new to report.
Thank you. Do we have any other speaker cards?
No, we do not.
Thank you. There being no other business to conduct at this commission meeting, we will adjourn to our regular Airport Commission meeting on October 25th, 2016, at 6 p.m. in these very city council chambers in Chico, California. Thank you very much for coming.